Look around you right now. Think about the one specific task that has been persistently sitting on your to-do list, generating persistent anxiety and crippling guilt, perhaps for weeks, or even stretching into months. That single critical goal, would fundamentally and positively change the entire trajectory of your professional or personal life. If only you could find the mental strength to finally start it. Why haven't you started it yet? If you find yourself in the same position as the vast majority of intelligent people struggling with this deep-seated issue, you probably internalize it as a personal character flaw. You label yourself as lazy, inherently undisciplined, or permanently unmotivated, leading to a vicious cycle of self-criticism and deeper avoidance. But I'm here to tell you something radically and scientifically different. A truth profoundly rooted in modern cognitive and behavioral psychology. You are not lazy. Procrastination is not a simplistic moral failing or merely a superficial sign of weakness. It is actually a complex, highly efficient, albeit ultimately destructive emotional regulation coping mechanism actively deployed by your subconscious brain. Today, we are tearing down that harmful lie and replacing it with genuine scientific understanding. We are going to expose the 4 hidden psychological drivers, the true underlying mechanisms that actively push you to consistently delay, avoid, and postpone your most critical and rewarding work, which is the precise reason that keeps you feeling trapped and deeply stuck. More importantly, I'm going to provide you with specific, empirically science-backed protocols, not vague self-help motivational fluff, to immediately disarm these 4 drivers, one by one, and to help you stop the debilitating cycle of procrastination for good. If you've ever felt completely paralyzed by the frustrating gap between where your life is right now and where you desperately want it to be, this video is designed to be your most essential psychological toolkit. Let's start with the immediate, deceptive, and constant pull of the present moment. The first, and arguably the most foundational psychological reason for delay, is a concept we call temporal discounting. This powerful phenomenon is your brain's natural evolutionary tendency to exponentially value rewards that you can obtain new in the present moment, far more than rewards that are scheduled to arrive later in the distant, uncertain future. This powerful immediate preference for instant gratification is deeply hardwired into our biology. Consider this simple choice: receiving $100 immediately today, or waiting to receive $150 in 1 month. Studies consistently show that most people, even knowing the superior long-term financial value, instinctively choose the immediate $100, prioritizing certainty over maximization. In the crucial context of complex work, the reward of avoiding the uncomfortable task, the satisfaction of playing a video game, scrolling social media, or simply resting feels concrete, certain, and immediately available. The grand reward of successfully finishing that massive report or launching your project next month, however, that feels agonizingly distant, highly abstract, and inherently uncertain. The instant relief of avoiding immediate pain now overwhelmingly wins the psychological tug-of-war every single time, because certainty beats potential. The psychological cost of starting a difficult task is always immediate and palpable. It demands significant mental energy, sustained focus, and emotional discomfort. Since the reward of finishing is delayed and therefore heavily discounted by your present focused brain, the immediate starting pain seems disproportionately large, and you reflexively choose the 5-minute easy thing instead of the 5-minute hard thing, prioritizing comfort. The protocol, the 5-minute rule. The highly effective solution here is to drastically reduce the initial activation energy required to begin. You simply commit to working on the dreaded task for exactly 5 minutes. Set a timer. Crucially, tell yourself you are allowed to quit completely, guilt-free, when the timer runs out, thereby removing the high-pressure threat. Why only 5 minutes? Because overcoming inertia. Actually, starting is the single hardest psychological barrier. Once momentum is generated and you begin working, a powerful cognitive effect known as the Zeigarnik effect, your brain instinctively hates leaving things incomplete or unfinished, demanding closure. By committing to just 5 low-pressure minutes, you expertly trick your brain past the immediate pain threshold. Experience shows that 9 times out of 10, you will continue working far longer because the pain of stopping the flow is suddenly greater than the initial pain of continuing the effort. You're not magically forcing sudden motivation. You are simply leveraging a pre-existing psychological bias, the human need for cognitive closure. Effectively create powerful, inescapable forward momentum. This insight is essential and must be mastered before you can address the next more complex emotional obstacles. The second hidden psychological reason is a complex. It's tight emotional, not often completely mistaken for general unmotivation. The avoidance of psychological threat, which manifests both as a severe fear of failure and, counterintuitively, as a fear of achieving success. We typically believe we delay because the work itself is intrinsically difficult. But much more often, the task has become symbolically and dangerously linked to our core self-worth and fundamental identity. If you never actually commit to finishing that novel or launching that business idea, your perceived potential and ability remains safely theoretical, untested, and unchallenged in the real world. Procrastination, in this emotional context, provides a convenient and subtle psychological defense mechanism known technically as self-handicapping, which perfectly protects your fragile ego from the harsh, undeniable reality of potential subpar performance or outright failure. If you fail, it can then always be comfortably attributed to a lack of sufficient time or effort. I was too busy to try hard enough, rather than being linked to a fundamental lack of competence or skill, which feels like a much deeper, more personal, and devastating threat to self-image. But let's also explore the often ignored fear of success. If you successfully complete this massive goal, you get that promotion. If you launch a thriving business, your entire life must fundamentally change. Success inevitably brings significantly higher expectations, far more public scrutiny, and the terrifying, constant pressure to maintain that new, demanding level of performance indefinitely. This deep-seated fear of the unknown future, where the performance standards are higher and the potential public fall is greater, is profoundly unsettling to your subconscious mind. It creates a classic case of hidden self-sabotage, the familiar, known discomfort of the current procrastination feels demonstrably safer than the anxiety-inducing high-stakes discomfort of change and maintaining success. The protocol: decoupling self-worth from outcome. The definitive solution to this ego defense loop is to rigorously, consciously, and constantly separate who you are as a person from what you produce as a worker. You must internalize the truth that your identity is based on your character, your values, and your effort, not the market reception or the critical review of your work. Shift your measurement focus entirely away from the anxious, perfectionist question, "Did I achieve the perfect result on this one go?" and towards the empowering, process-oriented question, "Did I execute the planned effort, and did I exhibit consistency in my work today?" Measure your self-efficacy solely on quantifiable effort and unwavering consistency, never on the actual final outcome, which is often outside your control. For instance, your new valid goal is not to write a bestseller. Your goal is to simply sit down and write 500 words 5 days a week, regardless of how messy or imperfect those 500 words feel in the moment, making the commitment ritualistic. This simple, powerful cognitive reframing, focusing obsessively on input rather than the terrifying final output completely, removes the fragile ego from the performance equation, immediately lowering the emotional and psychological stakes dramatically. By defining the consistent process as the ultimate win, you make starting easy, regardless of the daunting scale of the final result. The third hidden driver of procrastination is logistical in its form, yet it creates a crushing psychological block: the overwhelm effect, which is directly caused by a fundamental lack of cognitive clarity and an abstract view of the task. When a crucial task on your list is phrased vaguely, appears overwhelmingly enormous, or remains totally abstract-like. Plan the marketing strategy, or fix the entire basement your brain's prefrontal cortex perceives it instantly as a single monumental, terrifying hurdle. This vague magnitude immediately activates your primal fight or flight response, because the perceived size of the work suggests a threat far greater than your presently available mental resources, triggering a shutdown. The vagueness is the ultimate enemy of action. Your brain, being a highly efficient prediction and planning machine, cannot physically map out the necessary immediate steps, leading to a state of complete cognitive paralysis. Since you are unable to select a concrete starting point, you instinctively default to immediate avoidance, choosing a low-effort, high-certainty distraction like refreshing your social media feed or checking trivial emails, finding refuge in the familiar. The task is not truly too hard to complete. It's simply too big, too ongoing, and too broad in goal for your finite working memory to effectively manage or organize. This is a common failure of organization, not motivation. The protocol. Radical task chunking and the next action principle. The elegant solution is to use radical, almost ridiculous specificity to methodically break the overwhelming task down into steps so granular they feel almost impossible to not start. This is the classic strategy called task chunking. Take the overwhelming vague goal, plan the marketing strategy, and immediately transform it into the single, instantly actionable, next physical step. Open the blank document and write the main objective of the campaign in 3 sentences, or research 3 competitor websites. The crucial principle here is the next action principle. You must always, without fail, know the very next physical action required to meaningfully move the project forward. This micro-specificity bypasses the cognitive overload, allowing your brain to see a clear, manageable path forward. By making the first step incredibly small, ultra-specific, and low-effort, you minimize the perceived threat, making it psychologically easy to start and commit. This strategic psychological intervention converts abstract, crippling anxiety into concrete, manageable action, instantly eliminating the debilitating, "where do I even begin?" paralysis. The final hidden reason, and often the true, or a core issue uniting all the others, is that procrastination is fundamentally and completely an emotional regulation failure. It's not actually about inefficiently managing your time. It's about attempting to inefficiently manage your immediate unpleasant mood state. Extensive psychological studies confirm that people reliably procrastinate, not because they are genuinely unaware of the negative future consequences, but because they instinctively prioritize repairing their current negative mood state. The active decision to delay a task is a very effective short-term mood fix, a comfortable way to immediately escape the intensely unpleasant feelings of anxiety, crushing boredom, frustration, or inadequacy that the task instantly generates upon thought. This behavior is heavily driven by a cognitive distortion called affective forecasting, the pervasive human tendency to incorrectly and wildly overestimate just how bad, difficult, or painful we predict we will feel while performing the negative task. You overestimate the pain of the initial work and critically underestimate the inevitable, much greater pain of the resulting guilt, crushing self-criticism, and escalating future stress. Ultimately, you choose the temporary, fleeting comfort of immediate avoidance over enduring the temporary, absolutely necessary discomfort of focused, productive effort. This represents a profound failure to regulate your emotions in a healthy, adaptive way, leading inevitably to long-term emotional distress for the sake of a negligible short-term gain. The protocol, the eat the frog method. The most effective long-term protocol for consistently mastering emotional self-regulation is based on the famous advice attributed to Mark Twain. Eat a live frog first thing in the morning, and nothing worse will happen to you the rest of the day. Identify your single frog, the single most challenging, most unpleasant task that consistently creates the most powerful negative emotion: dread, anxiety, avoidance. Commit to doing that absolute worst task first, before checking any emails, before scrolling social media, and crucially, before allowing yourself any small, easy wins. By proactively tackling the worst task immediately, you secure an immediate, massive psychological victory. You release a powerful hit of dopamine, the primary motivation neurotransmitter, and eliminate the major source of day-long anxiety and cognitive drain. This successful early emotional regulation gives you unstoppable momentum and psychological control for the entire rest of your day, making all subsequent tasks feel significantly easier and less threatening. So there you have it. The myth is busted. Procrastination is not about laziness. It's about temporal discounting, ego defense, cognitive overload, and a fundamental failure of emotional regulation. The empowering truth is, you now possess the exact psychological tools and proven protocols, the 5-minute rule. decoupling self-worth, task chunking, and the powerful eat the frog method required to fight all four drivers effectively, starting right now. I want you to pick the single protocol that resonated most deeply with you, whether it's the 5-minute rule to create momentum or decoupling self-worth to start without fear and commit to implementing that one change today. Start small, but the critical part is that you must start now. Please tell me in the comments section directly below which of these 4 hidden psychological reasons drives your personal procrastination the most. Your honest, thoughtful answers and shared experiences not only help me significantly shape future, tailored content, but they also profoundly help countless others realize they are absolutely not alone in this fight. If you found this deep science-backed dive into the psychology of human behavior valuable, and you are serious about continuing to build the robust psychological blueprints for a more intentional, proactive, and successful life, make sure you hit the subscribe button right now. By subscribing to Psychology with Sergey Popovici, you are actively and wisely investing in your long-term mental and behavioral success. And finally, if anxiety, the core negative emotion driving much of this deep procrastination, is something you struggle with daily and need immediate relief from, I've linked my full video on the 3 techniques to calm your anxious mind in under 60 seconds right here on the screen for you. Watch that video next, and you will have 2 powerful interconnected toolkits working in tandem to transform your life. Thank you so much for investing your valuable time in yourself today. I'm Sergey Popovici. Remember, knowledge is power, but applied knowledge is true freedom. I'll see you in the next video.